Awesome. Hey guys, welcome to the talk on Token22 in year 2023. I think naming is still very much pending at this stage, but there's various different guises that this is going to come out at. I think for the most part we'll stick as Token22 at the moment, but I do know SPL Plus might actually take the win in terms of what this is going to be called long term. So today we'll be going through various aspects of Token22, how we can utilize it in the ecosystem, the current ecosystem adoption of this protocol, and then what we're looking forward to in the next kind of 3 to 6 months of how this protocol can then expand into various different areas. So without further ado, we'll get into it. Firstly, who am I? What am I doing up here? So I'm Scott. I'm the co-founder of Alphabatum Labs. So I've been an engineer for over 10 years now, working in various distributed large-scale systems. And for the past 2 years, we've been really focused on the Solana ecosystem and everything kind of encompassing Solana. That's come from a variety of internal product-led decisions, but then equally working with a variety of clients throughout the ecosystem to provide them functionality or smart contracts that they then go on to use or integrate into their own services. That kind of dragged us all into the Token22 functionality debate. We got in, I'd say, 6 to 8 months ago, starting to look at this protocol of how it could potentially reduce the amount of work we're doing. We saw that most of the functionality that clients were asking for was, for the most part, encapsulated within this functionality. So when we look at the extensions, we mentioned extensions later, a lot of what we are seeing from clients is now being kind of put into a core protocol layer, of which we can then build on top of, full composability, and a lot less vendor lock. So from that, we then decided to build out the first Token 2022 DEX called Fluxbeam. That was released 3-4 months ago now, in which we've had a variety of different Token 22 implementations, everything from transfer fees all the way through to default account states now being used in the ecosystem, and really providing kind of a full suite of tooling on top of that, so that even if you're not a developer, you can come along, get involved with Token 22. We've got a full suite of UI tooling on top of it, and we've actually done essentially a full DeFi rebuild to support a lot of this. So whether it's your open book implementation, your standard AMM curves, all the way through to the integration to wallets and explorers, we've basically been championing that and recently been helped out by the Solana Foundation to continue that work over the next few years as we see Token22 come out into the ecosystem. So you might be asking, Scott, why are we going through this upgrade? What's the point? We've already got Token V1 and it's working very well. I think a few of us who've been around for a long period remember the whole delegate issue a while back. So this has truly been battle tested now in production. I think over the past 30 days, we've had maybe around 400 million transactions alone on the token program, which is pretty crazy considering that's more than most other L1's transactions combined. So why do we need it? Well, when we look at the token account currently and how it's built out, we've got obviously a token program and then an associated token account program on top of it. And this is great in terms of standability and ensuring that everything is kind of standardized rather than what we see in more of the EVM chains of whereby you've got a contract and it can do whoever knows what with your token. However, this does come at the downside as we've got very limited functionality and flexibility within that token program because we have to comply to the underlying token program and associated token accounts. And this was really kind of starting to lead to what we were seeing in the ecosystem around a lot of wrappers being built up, especially in the NFT space. We had the whole royalties kind of issue over the past year or so, of whereby we've had various different contracts come in to try and fix the issue, but they always come up against the same issue time and time again, is we can build all this cool stuff, but again, the ecosystem support into the wider ecosystem is a bit of a nightmare. You have to go to each individual protocol provider, beg them, plead with them to integrate your smart contract, and then eventually kind of push that out over time. So with Token22, this actually solves a lot of that stuff. Firstly, what is it? Well, it's a superset of Token V1. So all your existing contracts and all your existing instruction sets that you're using Token V1 for, it's a straight drop-in replacement utilizing any type of interface. So you don't have to worry too much about any code that you've written already to support Token V2. There's not a major rework or anything like this. For the most part, this comes around the extensions. I would say there's a few caveats around maybe transfer fees. You have to be slightly careful to ensure that the amount of LAMP ports or token amounts that you're getting into your contract matches up with the transfer fee. However, there's a huge suite of anchor tooling now to help with a lot of this maths. And then equally, we've got the SPL interface on the token account side, so it really should be quite simple to integrate. Obviously, as we go through this, there's going to be more extensions, I guess, being added. Each one of them undergoes its own audits. I know audits for Fluxbeam was a very interesting one. The current audit status, and apologies for the slides, they're a little bit out of date as of Tuesday from our previous Token22 talk, but currently the status is we've got 4 completed audits across the majority of the Token22 program. There's one remaining, or there was one remaining, it's now 2. They are mainly to cover off the ZK implementations and the new metadata pointer and extensions that have come out, I'd say, in the past 4 months. So this is really getting towards the end of whereby I think the audits will start coming in. I think over the next few months we should see all of these finish up, and we should have a full suite of fully audited extensions and programs. In terms of the runtime, like what can you do currently today? All of this is supported on the current runtime of 1.16. The only caveat is we're waiting for a feature flag on 1.17, which should come out in the next few months. That feature flag will then enable all of the ZK computation, which will then enable confidential transfers. So let's have a look at some use cases, like why would we want to use this in the ecosystem? How is it going to benefit us? This seems like a huge uplift to put in a new token program for essentially a bunch of extensions. Well, we'll start off at DeFi. I think it's the home of the token, so pretty much apt to start here. And we get a few off the bat, really few kind of decent extensions that we can put to work right away to solve some of the current issues. Like I mentioned earlier, when it comes to the EVM ecosystems, they have a lot of kind of interactivity and kind of gamification of their token mints. They equally have a lot more control. For DeFi, we can see stuff like transfer fees being really useful, and this is probably one of the most used extensions on the Token22 protocol at the moment. What this allows you to do is take in any portion or percentage of a transfer every single time that's transferred on the blockchain. That goes into a withheld amount in which then tokens or communities can then utilize those transfer fees either for gamified fee-based tokenomics or even like kind of revenue share and fee management. If you want a little bit more functionality or a little bit more customizability that transfer fees don't quite match your goal, you can go all the way to transfer hooks. Transfer hooks are probably one of the coolest extensions coming out of Token 2022. What this allows us to do is rather than have all of these different separate wrappers and ecosystem integrations and getting all of that integrated into the third-party providers, transfer hooks give us a way to plug in directly into the token program and then call out into one of our own custom programs. So say you've got some custom bit of logic that you want to implement at the end of a transfer. This transfer hook, as long as you abide by the interface that is defined within the transfer hook, will call out on every transfer, and then you can do whatever logic you may want to do. You might think, oh, that's good, but what about all the accounts? The nice thing about transfer hooks is they've been built with that in mind. So you can actually specify an additional set of accounts that are required in order to complete that transfer hook. So whether it's kind of something very simple from maybe a configurable fee structure all the way through to being able to perform in-flight KYC and AML checks as these tokens are flying around, it really kind of opens up that ecosystem. When we look at other kind of integration partners as well, this is a really nice way for them to integrate into the platform and utilize the kind of ecosystem that we're building with Token22 without having to do all of the upsell to all of the other ecosystem providers and kind of get them integrated. I think another one is confidential transfers. Now this is, I think, slightly misunderstood in the industry. This is not a new kind of token mixer or anything like that. So anyone thinking this is a Tornado Cash, it's absolutely not. There is still a huge amount of kind of visibility on this token extension. So what do we mean by confidential transfers? Well, this is mainly around your balance. So while you will still see a token go from A to B, what we can now do is through ZK, we can take that balance and that amount that's being transferred between two parties and hide it away. So I think maybe the name's a little bit misleading, but it's more hidden transfers. Now you think, okay, that's great, but what about auditability or regulation? There's actually the ability to add in a global auditor on this extension. That basically means that one trusted authority can go through and validate and confirm all hidden balance transactions. So there is still a large amount of visibility if you want it, but if you want to keep it as kind of private and confidential, you can do so as well. I think we'd see this very well widely used in stuff like payroll or accounting, of whereby you don't mind seeing token flow to or from an account, but you don't perhaps want them to notice that, okay, this is 5,000 tokens or 2 million tokens. Moving into gaming, this is a particularly interesting one for us in some of the internal projects we've been doing, and one of the main use cases we see around gaming is mainly default account state. And all of these can be kind of interoperably used in DeFi and all the other ecosystem areas, but for the most part, default account state allows you to whereas traditionally in the current token program, once you airdrop out those tokens to a token account, the user is free to use them as they will, so they might dump them in an AMM pool or they might send them to a friend. With default account state, you can specify that that is a frozen token account from the get-go. And this adds a really interesting kind of gamification or interaction mechanic of whereby you can have your default account state, you can airdrop out millions of tokens, but only users that go through and perform a specific action. So whereby in gaming, it might be get to level 5 on a village, and then your tokens are thawed out for you. Or it could be something as simple as kind of just requiring another action or going into a Discord to unlock these tokens. And we've seen this in the DeFi side as well to try and combat some of the token sniping events and botting that occurs on a lot of the new token mints. Again, we have transfer hooks. You'll probably see this as a common theme. Transfer hooks are probably the most powerful of all of these, but if you want even more functionality or you maybe perhaps don't want to be running client-side or server-side oracles to thaw out all of those accounts, you could actually bake in both default account state and transfer hooks into the same implementation or the same token mint and have the transfer hooks deal with all of this for you. So you could essentially have a lot of your game logic or a large portion of your game logic, obviously depending on the compute limits, but you could have that logic running within each transfer hook and validating what the level of the player is or what their village might be leveled up to, and then define limits or transfer limits based on where they are and how they're progressing in the game. Equally, on the other side, if you're really not looking for them to ever transfer these tokens outside of their own little wallet and you want to use it as more of a kind of in-game achievement base or even kind of holding the account state of your game, you can start using soulbound tokens. Now, these tokens can't be removed from the user's wallet. They can't be transferred. They can be burned if they want to resettle their progress, but kind of counterintuitive for them. But this really allows us to start building out these token-gated activities, and even stuff like credit scores in DeFi can start leveraging the soulbound token without, again, having to have all these nasty wrappers all over the place. Finally, we'll look at the DAO and the ecosystem. I think this is a bit of a split slide, but for DAOs, I think permanent delegate is a really useful one, albeit quite a dangerous one at the same time, and we'll go into the security in a bit as it is security day today. But permanent delegate essentially allows you to have a token mint of whereby you can have a delegate or an authority that is always able to claw those tokens back. So if you look at it in terms of revocable membership for a members club, you've got a DAO vote, someone's been kicked out, you can actually claw that token back. We're talking in token terms here at the moment, but obviously this is all compatible with NFTs. So if you think you've got your monkey picture, you can claw that back and redistribute that to another member. Equally, on the confidential transfer side, I think this is going to be really useful for kind of pooled investment firms or DAO investment funding, of whereby you don't mind seeing everyone's kind of funding come in from these confidential balances, but you don't want to see the composition of the pool. So you might want to hide maybe the composition, but not the investment total. This is a really good one for that as well. And then finally, metadata. This is probably one of the newest extensions that's come out. This comes in 2 flavors, one very simple and one slightly more complex. I think over the past year, we've noticed that there's a fair amount of vendor lock at the metadata level, which is either forcing users to go with one specific program or try and implement these wrappers and again go through the whole pain of getting this integrated into the ecosystem, into NFT marketplaces, etc. With metadata, we can do one of 2 things. So firstly, we can now put all of our metadata for our standard token mint, so your name, your symbol, and your URL, directly into the mint account. This allows indexers a lot easier job. They only have to do one call to get all of your mint information, and then equally allows kind of less calls from anyone integrating this on their front end. They don't have to go to PDAs or anything like this, or a specific contract to work out where the metadata is stored. It's directly decodable within the mint account itself. On the other hand, if we want something a lot more complex and we really want to open up this ecosystem to a lot more innovation, we've got the metadata pointer. Now what this does is it basically sits on the token mint account and says that my metadata is being stored at this given program. As long as that program actually implements the token metadata interface, all front ends that have implemented the metadata standard for Token22 will now automatically pick up any of your metadata. So whether that's a custom contract doing dynamic layering, or you've got very custom integration for maybe a new metadata standard that's more gas efficient, this is really where we can start building up and building more innovation on that metadata layer and open it wide up rather than being on a singular contract all the time. So when we talk about ecosystem tooling and how to get all of this integrated into the variety of different products we've got, obviously everyone's been very, very busy building on Token V1, so there's a large amount of uplift to go on from everything from NFT marketplaces to DeFi aggregators, all the way through to your wallets and explorers. We've actually taken some of this pain off for you already. So we started about 6 months ago on this mission or this quest to get as many partners and integrators basically to support Token22 as a protocol, and going forward then support as many extensions as they can from their side. This started off as an initial push from ourselves at Fluxbeam alongside Jupiter, Birdseye, Phantom, and Backpack to get an initial push out along with the Bonkern team. And then this has been joined by a vast array of other token protocols and other platforms that have seen the benefit of Token22 or wanted to integrate it into their product. Namely, on the wallet layer, we've had a fair few of the additional wallets. The Explorers are now all supporting this. So the visibility of this is all getting better and better over time. And we just saw the Quantum keynote. That's very interesting. They support full Token22 as well. So all of this ecosystem is being built out kind of right now. You can use all of this stuff right now and start exploring with it. With that, obviously, there is caveats. There's more security considerations to take into account around this. This is why we've built out RugCheck. I don't know if anyone's in the DeFi crowd might have seen this before, but essentially it's a risk management tool of whereby we take all on-chain data points for Token V1 and Token 2022, along with all the extensions, and build out essentially a risk score for that token. Now, this has been in alpha for a good few months now, and we're actually going to launch a full open API for this, so anyone can integrate into it completely free and get this kind of user protection for their platform. And this covers everything from your token configuration all the way through to token deployer and information around how the funds have got there. So we employ a full network graph in the back end and work with multiple partners to enrich this data to ensure that it basically makes it as hard as possible for these scammers or ruggers to get into your platform and start trying to rip off users. When we look at the tooling side, we've got a vast array of different tools, should fit pretty much everyone's use cases. So this is everything from token creation all the way through to fee management and fee reclamation. We've got authority management and done essentially a full rebuild of all of the traditional token V1 tooling, and we built it for V2. So this even includes the metadata manager for your pointers and everything like that if you want to mess around with that. We've got a brand new tool, and this will continue to grow as we go through the ecosystem, as we get new user requirements. We'll just continue building out these toolings. If you are a developer, I would suggest looking at the Solana docs and on the Solana CLI and TypeScript libraries. They are now fully updated for Token 2022. So perfect time to start integrating, start having a play around with it, especially with ZK coming up in the next couple of months. I think this ecosystem is really going to start kicking off. And of course, we will have tooling around the ZK and confidential transfer side as well. I'll take a little bit of a second to kind of say, OK, what are we doing with all this Token22 stuff? Well, from Alphabetum Labs, our side, we've got a variety of different projects that we're looking to work on, all utilizing the Token 2022 ecosystem. So from Fluxbot, we've got our new token launch coming up in the next week or so. We'll be utilizing some cool extensions. We've got Blockhost, which is our decentralized infrastructure layer, of whereby it'll be using proof of stake and a Token 22 implementation to manage a lot of that for users as they decentralize this edge network. And then all the way through to kind of gaming implementation to showcase what we can do with on-chain gaming through Chrono Kingdoms and Token22, utilizing a lot of that gamification we talked about earlier. When we look at what's next for Fluxbeam, well, in particularly Token 2022, we have a full on and off ramp coming through to Fluxbeam to hopefully get more users into this ecosystem in a seamless and less tricky way than going through the 5 hops you currently have to do through Coinbase and paying all the ridiculous fees. But then equally, we've got more integrations coming. So we've been working with the Token22 order book from the open book guys. We did their V1 about 3 to 4 months ago. We've now done their V2. That's got a PR active at the moment. So hopefully within the next couple of weeks, you'll be able to use CLOB management for all of your open book utilization. And then we've also got a two-way token migrator. There is a V1 token migrator, which allows you to go basically all or nothing. This migrator gives you a little bit more flexibility or functionality on that for kind of existing projects, of whereby you may want to manage the burn of the V1 tokens and then slowly upsell onto the V2 tokens, equally giving you a bit of a back ramp if you ever need to use some of the older ecosystem tooling that perhaps hasn't upgraded to Token 22 yet. So rather than being an all or nothing, you get a nice linear curve onto it. And then finally, we've got NFT pools. I haven't really touched on NFTs on this side because there's been a token kind of more DeFi-focused talk. But all of this is functionally available for NFTs as well. Especially with the new metadata extensions, we can really get away from this vendor locking of that underlying metadata and start pushing this out. So you can think about transfer fees and enforceable royalties at the core protocol level for NFTs. You can think about NFT pools, which we'll be showcasing some of this information on, and all of the metadata stuff that goes with it. So I'm really excited to see where basically that's going to go over the next couple of weeks. And then finally, we've got a FluxB launch. So thanks to everyone kind of sticking around to the end. But our FluxB launch will be probably on the 7th of November, so in less than a week now. And that'll be basically our ecosystem token that's going to be providing all the value through this and start generating more of these ecosystem innovations we've been doing. And with that, yeah, thank you very much for all listening. And yeah, I hope you have a great day.